At the Bayou Wild Wildlife Park, a private zoological facility located on the outskirts of Louisiana, a 12-year-old gorilla named Precious Luna had become one of the establishment's most beloved attractions, drawing visitors from across the region who came to observe her typically playful and energetic personality. However, for several consecutive days, Luna had been exhibiting behavior that was completely contrary to her usual nature, remaining motionless on the concrete floor of her enclosure and appearing unable or unwilling to rise to her feet. This dramatic change in her demeanor caught the attention of a concerned visitor who, upon closer observation, noticed that the gorilla appeared to be suffering considerable discomfort due to the significantly enlarged size of her abdomen. Luna had reportedly been pregnant for an extended period, yet no birth had occurred despite the apparent advanced stage of her condition. The observant visitor, having conducted some research into the typical gestation period for gorillas, began to suspect that something was seriously wrong with the animal's health. When this individual attempted to alert the zookeepers and management staff about their concerns regarding Luna's condition, they were quickly dismissed and told not to worry, with staff members insisting that the gorilla was simply experiencing normal pregnancy-related irritability and that her behavior was completely within expected parameters. However, this explanation failed to address the obvious signs of distress that Luna was displaying. This was not the first occasion on which visitors had expressed concern about Luna's deteriorating condition, but previous warnings had consistently been ignored by the facility's staff and management. The zoo's representatives continued to maintain that the gorilla was in perfect health, despite mounting evidence that her situation was becoming increasingly critical with each passing day. The facility's dismissive attitude toward legitimate concerns about animal welfare would soon attract the attention of someone with the platform and influence necessary to bring this situation to public awareness. A turning point in Luna's story came when Jake, a prominent social media influencer with over 2 million followers on Instagram, decided to visit the Bayou Wild Wildlife Park after receiving numerous messages from his audience about the concerning conditions at the facility, particularly regarding a gorilla that appeared to have been pregnant for an unusually extended period. Initially skeptical about these claims, Jake's perspective changed dramatically when he witnessed Luna's condition firsthand and observed the staff's continued denial that any problem existed. Confronting the zoo personnel directly, Jake expressed his outrage at what he perceived as clear negligence in animal care, stating emphatically that the situation was completely unacceptable. However, he encountered the same dismissive attitude that had greeted previous concerned individuals, with staff members reiterating their claim that Luna was simply experiencing mood changes related to her pregnancy and that there was no cause for alarm. Frustrated by this response, Jake decided to document what he had witnessed and share it with his substantial online following. The images and videos that Jake posted to his social media accounts quickly went viral, reaching millions of viewers who were shocked by Luna's obviously deteriorated condition and the apparent lack of appropriate veterinary care being provided by the facility. Other visitors began sharing their own negative experiences at the zoo, describing encounters with animals that appeared to be in poor health and highlighting what seemed to be systematic neglect by the staff. Social media platforms became flooded with messages of support for Luna and urgent calls for authorities to intervene in the situation. The normal gestation period for gorillas typically lasts approximately 8.5 months, but Luna had been displaying an enlarged abdomen for nearly 10 months and 3 weeks, a duration that raised serious questions among veterinarians and animal behavior experts about whether she was actually pregnant or suffering from some other serious medical condition. The Grow an Online campaign brought increasing pressure on local authorities to investigate the facility and ensure that the appropriate veterinary care was provided to all animals under their care. The situation escalated to the point where concerned citizens began organizing protests outside the zoo, demanding that Luna receive proper medical attention and that the facility be held accountable for its apparent neglect of animal welfare. Demonstrations grew in size and intensity until police intervention became necessary, ultimately forcing the temporary closure of the facility while authorities conducted a thorough investigation into the conditions and treatment of animals at the park. Dr. James Morrison, a veterinarian specializing in large mammals with over 15 years of experience treating exotic animals, volunteered to examine Luna personally after learning about her situation through social media coverage. Initially, his requests for access to the gorilla were denied by zoo management, but the increasing pressure from protesters and media attention eventually forced the facility's owners to allow the examination, though they continued to insist that Luna was in perfect health and that their concerns were unfounded. Dr. Morrison proposed a straightforward arrangement to resolve the dispute, stating that if Luna was indeed healthy, as the zoo claimed, he would publicly confirm this assessment and help clear the facility's reputation. Conversely, if serious health issues were discovered, appropriate treatment would need to be provided immediately. Faced with mounting public pressure and no reasonable alternative, the zoo's management reluctantly agreed to allow the veterinary examination to proceed. Upon entering the facility and approaching Luna's enclosure, Dr. Morrison was confronted with a scene that was far worse than anything he had anticipated based on the social media coverage. The gorilla lay motionless on her side in what could generously be described as a small concrete cell rather than a proper animal habitat. Her skin appeared pale, and her overall condition suggested severe weakness and possible dehydration. The environment surrounding her was deplorable, with the air thick with the stench of rotting fruit, accumulated waste, and stagnant water. Flies buzzed around a dirty water container, while the floor was covered with decomposing food scraps and various pieces of garbage that had apparently been thrown into the enclosure by visitors. A younger zoo employee, speaking quietly and appearing more honest than his supervisors, revealed that Luna had not eaten anything for an extended period and spent her days lying motionless, occasionally falling asleep, but showing no interest in food or interaction with her environment. While Luna's enlarged abdomen initially suggested an ongoing pregnancy, Dr. Morrison immediately recognized the signs that indicated something far more serious was occurring. When the young employee mentioned that the gorilla had stopped eating, the facility manager who was accompanying the examination began fabricating explanations, claiming that Luna was simply experiencing a complicated pregnancy and that their resident veterinarian was monitoring her condition closely. He attributed her extreme lethargy to normal pregnancy-related fatigue. Dr. Dara Morrison was not convinced by these explanations, pointing out the deplorable condition of the enclosure and questioning the absence of any veterinary staff. Dr. Morrison concluded that Luna was not receiving adequate care and that something seriously wrong was happening at the facility. He requested permission to perform an immediate ultrasound examination to properly diagnose her condition and begin appropriate treatment if necessary. However, the zoo staff asked him to return the following day, claiming that his presence would interfere with the work of their supposed veterinary team. Reluctantly agreeing to this delay while recognizing the need to maintain cooperation in order to help Luna, Dr. Morrison spent a sleepless night worrying about the gorilla's condition. When he returned to the facility the next morning with his medical equipment, he discovered that many enclosures that had been occupied by animals the previous day were now mysteriously empty. It appeared that the zoo had secretly relocated numerous animals to unknown locations during the night, though Luna remained in her enclosure, presumably because her critical condition made transportation impossible. Concerned not only about Luna, but also about the other animals that had been concealed, Dr. Morrison posted an update online about the developing situation. This prompted the arrival of reporters and media outlets at the zoo to investigate what was happening behind the scenes. When confronted by this increased scrutiny, the facility's veterinarian initially continued to minimize the situation, repeatedly insisting that Luna was fine, but under sustained pressure from Dr. Morrison, he eventually made a shocking confession. Zoo's veterinarian admitted that something was indeed wrong with the gorilla, but revealed that the facility simply did not want to deal with the problem, carelessly suggesting that it would be easier to euthanize Luna and acquire a replacement animal. Dr. Morrison was outraged by this admission, expressing his disbelief that a licensed veterinary professional could speak so cruelly about a living creature, and becoming even more determined to examine Luna regardless of the obstacles placed in his way. Meanwhile, the crowd of protesters and supporters outside the zoo continued to grow, with some demonstrators becoming increasingly confrontational with security guards as frustration over the facility's obstruction of veterinary care reached a boiling point. It became clear that the zoo's owners preferred to let the animal die rather than allow her to receive the medical attention she desperately needed. After another hour of fruitless negotiations with zoo staff while the protesters' voices grew louder, Dr. Morrison made the decision to address the crowd directly. Speaking to the assembled demonstrators, Dr. Morrison explained that he had been at the zoo since early morning attempting to obtain permission to examine the gorilla without success, emphasizing that he was willing to provide his services free of charge and that his only goal was to ensure that Luna received appropriate medical care. His words further inflamed the emotions of the crowd, and the collective indignation eventually forced police to intervene in an attempt to control the chaos that was developing. After listening to the explanation of why the demonstration was taking place, police officials ordered the zoo's owners to step aside and allow Dr. Morrison to perform his examination. It had become evident that even law enforcement authorities were beginning to suspect that something seriously wrong was being concealed within the facility. With no remaining options for resistance, the zoo's management was forced to grant access to Luna's enclosure. Dr. Morrison carefully put on his protective equipment and entered the enclosure slowly, unsure of exactly what he would encounter and moving deliberately to avoid frightening Luna or any other gorillas that might be nearby. Surprisingly, the other animals in the area moved away as if they understood that he was there to help. As he approached Luna, he found her completely motionless, lying on the ground with a vacant expression that suggested she had given up entirely. The gorilla was so weak and lethargic that she did not even react when Dr. Morrison gently touched her leg, and it appeared that she had remained in the same position for days, which deeply concerned the veterinarian, who feared that he might have arrived too late to save her. Beginning his examination with extreme care, the Dr. Morrison was surprised to find that the animal's genital area was relatively clean considering her apparent immobility. But Luna was clearly dehydrated, with pale skin and a body that had lost significant muscle mass despite her enlarged abdomen. Her breathing was labored and slow, while her pulse, barely audible through a stethoscope, was irregular and alarming. Recognizing that time was running out, Dr. Morrison prepared his portable ultrasound equipment and began scanning Luna's abdomen. He observed the skin carefully, searching for any clear signs of fetal development, but the images were confusing and difficult to interpret. Adjusting the probe, cleaning the gel, changing angles, and applying gentle pressure at different points, Dr. Morrison found no evidence of fetal movement, no heartbeats, and no signs of life within the enlarged abdomen. Suddenly, his eyes widened as he realized what he was actually seeing on the ultrasound screen. This was not a pregnancy at all, he murmured in shock, staring at the display with a dry throat and trembling hands as he recognized that there was a large, foreign object inside Luna's body. Shouting in horror as he comprehended that everyone had been wrong and that Luna had never been pregnant, Dr. Morrison realized that what was inside her abdomen was something completely abnormal and potentially life-threatening. Without hesitation, he gathered his gloves, scalpel, and syringe, announcing to the crowd that had gathered outside the enclosure that he needed to operate immediately because Luna's life depended on it. One of the greatest challenges was calculating the exact dosage of anesthesia needed for the procedure, as too little would risk Luna awakening during surgery, while too much could prove fatal. After several minutes of precise calculations, Dr. Merson carefully administered the measured dose and Luna fell into a deep, stable sleep. Working quickly, he made a clean incision in the gorilla's abdomen while the group of protesters watched in complete silence, some recording the procedure, others praying, all holding their breath in anticipation. No one knew what the doctor would find or whether Luna would survive the operation, and the fear was palpable as many worried that this moment might mark the end of beloved Luna, who had brought smiles to zoo visitors for so many years. Dr. Don Morrison worked tirelessly for more than 2 hours cleaning the interior of Luna's digestive system, and it quickly became clear that the gorilla was not pregnant but instead had been suffering from a massive accumulation of undigested food, feces, and debris that indicated a severe intestinal obstruction. While he was able to relieve some of the pressure immediately, Dr. Morrison knew that to save Luna's life, she would need to be transferred to a proper operating room where more precise surgical intervention could be performed. Without wasting time, he requested assistance, and several volunteers mobilized to secure a specialized ambulance for transport. When the medical transport team arrived, Luna was carefully moved to Dr. Morrison's veterinary clinic, where he and his team could work with greater precision and better equipment. Everything moved with urgency as they prepared Luna for surgery, while Dr. Morrison focused on removing whatever was blocking the natural passage between her stomach and intestines. Sweat ran down their faces as they worked with precision, knowing that the slightest error could be fatal. Finally, they discovered the cause of the obstruction: a large piece of plastic wrapping, approximately the size of a dinner plate, completely blocking the intestinal passage. Upon closer examination, the plastic appeared to be part of fruit packaging material, creating a barrier that had prevented the passage of food and waste, causing the accumulation that had nearly cost Luna her life. Dr. Morrison could not understand how a gorilla had managed to ingest such a large piece of plastic, but the answer was obvious: negligence on the part of zoo staff, who likely did not bother to remove packaging materials from food before feeding it to the animals. Despite the horrific nature of the situation, the surgery was successful, with the medical team managing to remove the plastic obstruction, completely clean Luna's digestive system, and stabilize her condition. Dr. Morrison felt outraged by the discovery, unable to comprehend how the zoo's management had allowed the situation to deteriorate to such a dangerous point, and the apparent indifference with which they treated animal health was deeply disturbing. News of the rescue spread rapidly, with journalists flocking to Dr. Morrison's clinic seeking interviews, while the public demanded constant updates on Luna's condition. Although the doctor was happy to share the good news about the successful surgery, he also made sure to publicly denounce the neglect that Luna had suffered, emphasizing that while they had managed to save her life, the zoo's owners would need to face legal consequences for their negligence. During the 3 weeks following the surgery, Dr. Morrison dedicated himself completely to caring for Luna, and miraculously she began recovering at an impressive rate, not only regaining her strength but becoming healthier and more vibrant than ever before. Dr. Morrison's compassion and dedication made him a national hero, with many considering him a celebrity due to his professional commitment and ethics, and his veterinary clinic became a reference point, attracting pet owners and livestock farmers from throughout the state. Thanks to his experience and popular support, Dr. Morrison drafted a petition against private zoo owners that was backed by thousands of people online, resulting in legal prosecution of the facility's operators and the revocation of their operating license. The remaining animals were transferred to a new sanctuary where they would receive the care and attention they deserved. And Luna was also moved there to begin a new life in a safe and dignified environment where a remarkable story of survival would serve as a reminder of the importance of proper animal welfare and the difference that one dedicated individual can make when others have failed to act.